Hey, let's get right to the good stuff. The meaning of life is a bad concept. There is no meaning of life. What you should seek is the meaning of being human. Seeking the meaning of life will lead to dead ends, false positives, frustration, ideology, or some combination of these things. Seeking what it means to be human can help you better understand yourself, your neighbors, civilization, and perhaps even your place in the world. That's the gist of it. If the rest of this will just be justifying that. I started with an essay. I only got so far. It took more discipline than I have apparently, but we're going to continue with that for now. We can do. I didn't set that up right. So we can say a quick thanks to our friends, of course, Toyful9191, 2 years of continuing subscription, and anyone else who's subscribed, followed along the way. If you want to help out, you guys can find something to click on Twitch and or YouTube, but I'll leave that to you. So let's get on with it. Whoa, Peach Fuzz. I haven't watched you in a while. Yeah, I don't live stream on YouTube anymore, or hadn't anymore. And then I found out that because I got affiliate on Twitch, and at the time you could only, anything you did live, you couldn't release anywhere else for 24 hours. So I went with that, but that's not the case anymore. So and since this is going to end up on YouTube, it seemed like a good way to do it. Last thing was Kermit Space Program. Wow, that is a long time ago. I've done stuff since then, even on YouTube. But yeah, so today it's philosophy. No Kermits or Kerbals but if you have any questions along the way, let me know. I'm going to try to get through this essay and then expand on what I didn't actually write. In the interest of not wasting your time, that was everything. Okay, that first paragraph that I read there. Or is it over here? Yeah. I might add that, find ways to be useful to yourself and to others. That's a good philosophy of life if you're looking for the meaning of life. That's something that's actionable, finding ways to be useful to yourself and others, your family, your community. Knowing you've done something to improve or perpetuate humanity can go a long way in feeling justifiably good about yourself, your place, your role. But the rest of this video essay will be explaining why contemplating the meaning of life probably never has and probably never will help anyone, whereas the concept of the meaning of being human is accessible and practical. I'm supposed to remind you that if you'd like to help this video or channel out algorithmically, there are things to click. Duh. And if you'd like to help out more substantially, some suggestions are available in the description. I don't think they're available at the moment, but if you look at any of my older videos, or if I've had time to correct it after it's no longer live, then there should be information there. So, as I said at the rest of the video, I'll be explaining why the meaning of life is a bad concept and why the meaning of being human is a good perspective, better perspective, useful perspective. I'll be relying on naturalistic explanations. So maybe I should just finish reading. You can add supernatural explanations, but if we can't explain it with natural explanations, that just means we don't really understand it. So for anyone that has a religious or otherwise ideological philosophy, I'm trying to go more from first principles rather than a set of artificial beliefs. So why is the meaning of life a bad concept? Quick joke. I heard John Cleese tell this at a video I would recommend, where he was talking about creativity. And he peppered it with a lot of light bulb jokes. How many philosophers does it take to change a light bulb? And define change. That's the punchline. It seems like any philosophical discussion usually starts with defining our terms. And it's, for anyone who's not into philosophy, that's so boring. It's like, oh, geez, I wanted to talk about this, and all you want to do is talk about the meanings of the words. But if you're not talking about the same thing. If I say potato and you're thinking French fry and I'm thinking mashed potato, then we're not necessarily communicating. We're just talking past each other. So where some words can be confusable or have broader definitions, it sometimes is important to recognize broader definitions or more specific definitions. But yeah, tedious, I know, but we got to do it. So what do I mean by life? In this context, we're probably not talking about the meaning of biological life. Why is there biological life? Might be a question that someone could ask, but that's usually not what people are asking. Nor are we referring to the existence of human life, the existence being the key thing there. What we seem to be talking about is not just human life, but a human life, or not the state of a human being alive, but the life that is lived. From the moment you're born to the moment you die, there is a continuum or a continuity of experience. And I think that's what we're talking about when we're saying life. We come into the world and we leave it that collection of experiences and efforts, inputs, outputs, things we learn, feel, share, inflict, do. This lifelong package of existence as an individual seems to be what we're getting at. That continual experience. Continual or continuous? It's continuous, isn't it? Seems to be what we mean when we're asking about the meaning of life. I think I skipped something there. Getting at, when we say it's my life, that seems to be what we mean when we're asking about the meaning of life. So, it's my life. That's the way we use life in that sentence is probably what most people mean when they're talking about the meaning of life. But I think because life has more than one definition, we want to sneak those other definitions in, like why does life exist? Why are there life forms? Why did life become a thing in the universe? We want to sneak those other definitions in, collection of experience of an individual, in with the definition that we'll be using, a collection of experiences of an individual human. And, it could be, I would suppose anything that has a self-reflective consciousness, you could apply that as well, but the human experience seems to be fairly unique among the life that we know of. Let's see, what about meaning? Oh yeah, the word meaning. This is kind of tricky because what is the meaning of meaning? What's the meaning of this? Let's see, what about meaning? What is the meaning of meaning? Definition, there's 4 definitions and they kind of overlap and they're kind of discrete. One definition would be definition. One definition of meaning is definition. What is meant literally by something. So I gave an example. Hopefully I can remember why I used these examples. So definition, it's too hot. I think we need to come back to that. Another definition for meaning is significant or gist. An example, want to go for a walk? It's too hot. So when you're saying it's too hot, you are defining some characteristic of the weather, in this case the temperature, and it being at an uncomfortable temperature. When you say, want to go for a walk, it's too hot, again, you're referring to that attribute of extra temperature, but there's a subjective relationship with it. It's the meaning of why you don't want to go for a walk. Bode, let's see. Sir, bother you? I want to offer you promotion to your channel. I don't want any promotions. I don't want any art. I don't want any artificial inflation of stats. So, sorry, wasting your time. Let's see. Importance, the third definition, importance, validity, value, meaning. I didn't come up with ones for those. purpose or intent. So, and this purpose and intent is kind of weird when we're talking about the meaning of life, because then you're saying, what is the purpose of this collection of experiences, or what is the intent of that? And I'm pretty sure we're going to be coming back to that, but it's kind of, it's partly what we're looking for, but it partly doesn't make sense. We'll come back to that. So if we're looking at the meaning of life with these various definitions, with the first definition, when we say what is the meaning of life, we are saying what is a life. And when we are asking what is the meaning of life, clearly that's not what we're asking. When we're asking what is the meaning of life, are we asking about the significance of life? What is the significance of life? What is the gist of life? What understanding comes from having a life? Does my life signify? And interesting, I only noticed this recently, signify begins with sign, and that kind of lends to the meaning. Does my life signify something? So does my life signal something else? Does my life, does my collection of experiences imply something else? Does it point to something else? Is it a sign of something else? And that's, when we're asking what is the meaning of life, that's not exactly what we're asking, but it feels a little bit closer. We can go with the fourth definition, purpose and intent. What is the intent of being alive? What makes a life purposeful? Purpose. This is a little closer to what people are asking when they say, what is the meaning of life? But it's still not exactly that. And the problem with what is the intent of this collection of experiences, to have an intent or to have a purpose, you need something to assign or estimate or perceive that intent. This is the problem with basically all teleological arguments, and maybe I'll get into that later, I don't know. But like, an example I typically use, like with kids, is you look at a tree, you point to a branch in the tree and you say, what is the intent of that? What is it and what is the intent of it? It's a branch, and the intent of it is to hold the leaves up so that they can collect sunlight, photosynthesis, and then funnel the sap back and forth. But that branch hasn't always existed. So did it come into being for that intent, for that purpose? In a way, yeah. I mean, it's an evolutionary byproduct, or product, really, not a byproduct. But at some point, the tree will die, the branch will die, or fall off, and there will be a stick laying on the ground. At that point, what is the intent of the stick? What is the reason? What is the why of the stick? What is the purpose? What is the intent? And so you could say, well, there isn't one. Or you could say, well, it's going to decay and feed nutrients into the soil for plants. It'll feed the termites. And so it has a purpose. It has an intent. Or at least you can perceive some. Or you could pick it up and use it as a tool of some sort, or a piece of art. I guess art is also, an artifice is a tool. But, and then eventually those molecules are going to separate and possibly become other molecules, in their atomic form, spread out. And then at what point what is the intent or purpose of what was there? Well, now it's a bunch of different things. But to say that the purpose or the intent of something is what it is, those purposes only exist because something is interacting with them. Purpose isn't something that objectively exists. Purpose is something that is perceived by something else that interacts with the thing that we're trying to perceive the intent of. So when we're talking about a collection of experience, a lifetime, where does the intent come from? Does it come from the society? Does it come from the parents? Does it come from the individual who's living the life? Does it come from the children of the person that's living the life? Does it come from the distant ancestors, the distant descendants? Or is there something, is it the world itself? The earth has an intent which, gives some sort of consciousness to the unconscious. And sorry to offend panpsychists, but it's giving more intent, or it's giving more agency and deliberateness to things that don't have consciousness that as we know it, that self-reflective collection of understanding. So we have these four, I should probably move on instead of expounding here. So we have these four questions. None of them, based on the four definitions, none of them quite do the trick if we're looking for what is the meaning of life. And we ask, and we think about what do we mean when we say what is the meaning of life? What are we, value? But value is not enough. What is the value of life? What is it about my life that is valuable or important? That's kind of what we're asking, but that's not exactly what we're asking. We're asking more than that. And because we're tool users, I don't know if I went into this in the essay or not, because we're tool users, we want to identify purpose or intent in everything. That's how we became tool users. Have that hyperactive pattern recognition that is looking for how things can be useful to us. And so when we see a stick, we might think, it's just a stick, or we might see, oh, that's something that I can use. Kind of depends on what's going on inside of us at the time. Do you need something like a stick? There's a stick. Well, I found a purpose for it. My needs and the resources that are available have found a match, or I have found a match between those two. And that's where purpose and intent come from. What we intend to use something for. And then also, because we're social creatures, even if we weren't social creatures, we would still be have needs for food and water. So if we see a source of water, we will think that is something that I can drink from, and so I intend to drink from it. Same with anything that we can make a tool out of, anything we can eat, anything that, even things that we can eat indirectly, like animals, or if you see a carrot bush growing, you're not going to probably eat the greens, you're probably going to want the root. But by seeing the greens, we can develop an intent or a purpose for that plant, even though we're not seeing the part that we actually intend to do anything with. Oh wow, I'm almost done with what I've written. Each of these questions feel like something is missing, most notably the first one, what is the definition of meaning? We seem to be asking all of them at once, kind of. Yeah, we want to know the significance, we want to know the value, and we want to know the purpose all at once. There is a gestalt in what is the meaning of life question that seems to crave an all-encompassing answer. So it's like we want an answer that will answer all of these questions. What is the definition? What is the significance? What is the importance? What is the purpose? We want something that's going to answer all of those questions at the same time. When we're asking the meaning of life, it's like we want to know one answer that will satisfy all of these questions. And is it reasonable to expect that something will answer all of those questions? To me, it seems more like we're asking the question in a way that confines the answer to a certain range when that range isn't necessarily reasonable to the expectation of the question. Easy examples would be like, what is the smell of 3? Or what is the color of heartache? You know, the thing that you're asking for, in this case, meaning for something that doesn't necessarily have meaning in these senses. Another way to look at this is if you change the meaning of life to a meaning of life. If I ask you, what is a meaning of life? You could probably come up with a bunch on your own. You know, there's how many people are going to say love before anything else? Reproduction, fun. There are lots of things that you value in life that validate your existence in one way or another. Being useful validates you in one way or another. It's pronounced theological. What's are you thinking of teleological? Okay. Let's bring that up there. And do I have... I bet I do. Oh, I might need to be on this one. There we go. Hello? There it is. I don't have it set up the way I have the other one set up. So, you don't know that one? So yeah, theological is relating to the study of religion. And I don't even know if I know how to spell teleology. Is that it? Ta-da! I did it right. So it's well, also
Teleology.
Teleology. I've heard it teleology. Maybe teleology is correct. Maybe I've only heard British people pronouncing it. The explanation of phenomenon in terms of the purpose they serve, rather than of the cause by which they arise. No theory of history can do without teleology. So it's purpose is the key word there. Purpose, intent, the why of things in the sense of a lot of religious arguments are teleological arguments. Like, why is this like this? It's because it's like that to serve this typically metaphysical purpose, and you kind of have to accept the metaphysical purpose before that question that makes sense. There's one guy, I remember I was talking about him recently. He says that his strongest argument for the existence of God is the existence of morality, and that morality wouldn't exist without a purpose, and that purpose is because God wanted it. So we wouldn't be moral if it weren't for God. And it's a terrible argument when you understand the biological origins of morality, which is basically a physical being, so can be affected by other matter and energy. Alive, so can be harmed, can be brought to states of not being alive anymore. subjective, so can be, so that harm is felt, and a developed sense of things being better or worse, either through comfort, pain, suffering, but that subjective experience leads us to understand some things are good and some things are bad and some things are better and some things are worse. And then empathy, so that we can understand that other things feel what we feel, and that empathy kind of goes hand in hand with the social instinct, so that we feel a sense of responsibility or justice or a craving for fairness for those within our group, within our social group. Difference there makes sense. The cause by which they arise is how they are defined otherwise. Yeah, and well, it's something that is so obviously not useful when we're looking at natural phenomenon that I just have trouble giving it the credit that so many philosophers, especially theologians, do. To me, if it's not artificial, if it's not not artificial, it doesn't, like a beaver's dam, that may be an extended phenotype. The beaver may not understand what it's doing. It just does it out of an instinct that has developed. But at the same time, there is a purpose to it. Even if the beaver doesn't entirely understand it. So why does it arise? Why does the behavior of building a dam arise, or an ant nest, or whatever else? It's because it has served the well-being of the beaver and the instinct to do things like create pools, helps beavers survive. Making ant nests helps ants survive as well as reproduce. So when we're looking at things that creatures do, yeah, there can be a teleology, and it's valuable in asking, why does this creature have this feature or behavior? And maybe you won't be able to discover the answer, but you're probably going to speculate something which you might be able to test, or it might lead you in the right direction. And understanding the why of things in general, not necessarily the purpose, like why do the tides rise and fall? Understanding what makes that happen. The moon is not doing it with any intent or purpose, but it is an interaction between various bodies, very gravitational sources. So understanding the why, definitely beneficial in that way, but expecting why does the moon want to do this, that's not necessarily useful. It can be useful in assigning anthropomorphic intentions to things that aren't even animate, like, why does the moon do that? If you want to explain it in terms of why it wants to do that, you're kind of dealing with a fairy tale, but you might also get to the point of why it actually does that, and then that adding intention to it just makes it easier to remember or understand. But the intention of a inanimate object would be artificial, or not artificial, fictional or fantasy. Don't think there is a meaning to life, but now it can be all lives, things to a common something that we haven't seen yet. Why would beavers do that, etc.? Well, and again, it's because beavers that probably started off making small pools had better survival and reproductive success. And, as that iterates over generations, then the pools probably got bigger, the dams probably got bigger. Do we have evidence of that? I don't think we do. I don't think there's archaeological digs of ancient beaver dams. Or would we even recognize them if they were? It's hard to imagine a pool and a dam made of sticks and logs being preserved intact, but maybe. So we are kind of left guessing there. But, But what I was getting at earlier is that a better question than what is the meaning of life is what does it mean to be human? Is that actually the way let's see. What you should seek is the meaning of being human. Yeah. Because if you understand how it is we evolved and what value is, where value comes from, then you can make better judgments as to how you can be useful, how you can create value for yourself and others. Whereas, what is the meaning of life? It's not something that you can't really do anything with that. It just, yeah, you can toy with it, but if, and I think you missed this part, if you're phrasing your question like the meaning of life, that suggests that there is an answer that falls within a range of possible answers. So like what is meaning? And we went through several definitions of meaning, and none of them alone really explain what is the meaning of life or give a clear notion of what we're seeking when we're asking what is the meaning of life. But not only that, what we're asking for probably doesn't even exist. I'm being slightly agnostic on this, although what I would like to say is that the meaning of life as a concept, that meaning of life does not exist. It just doesn't. But it's one of those things, how can I prove it? To some extent, maybe I can, but it's just as the meaning of life is hard to pin down because it doesn't exist. Pinning down why it doesn't exist can be difficult as well, and it's partially it's the expectation of what we're asking. What were those for? Yeah, so are we asking the definition? Are we asking what is life? We're not asking that. We're not asking what understanding comes from having a life. That's not exactly what we're asking either. Does my life signify something, or what does my life signify? What does my life point to something else? That doesn't quite make sense. What makes life important? Why is life valuable? What gives my life validity? So if we're looking at importance, validity, value, what is the meaning of life? What is the importance of life? What is the validity of life? What is the value of life? When we're asking what is the meaning of life, that's not what we're looking for. Importance, validity. I mean, we want those things, but when we're asking what is the meaning of life, that's not what we're asking. Purpose, intent, what is the purpose of life? What is the intent of life? That's more in line, not exactly right. It feels closer to what we mean when we ask what is the meaning of life. But what is the purpose of life? What is the intent of life? Again, who is bestowing or imbuing the intent or the purpose? So that would require some third party to be, or ourselves to assign purpose or intent. to a life. And in some ways, that's terrifying in the sense of, would you want that to happen? Here's a good example. Like the, what is that Rick and Morty scene where Rick makes a little robot, and he tells the robot, pass the butter. The robot passes the butter. And creator, what is the meaning of my life? Your meaning is to pass the butter. And then the robot feels dejected because, I've served my purpose and I'm only good for one thing, and so I don't have a purpose. Why is matter? I don't understand the question. Are you asking why does matter exist? Or what's the matter? What is my purpose? You serve butter. Oh my God. Is that more of a direct quote? Yeah. That one little scene just, it was like hilarious and existentially frightening. At the same time, it was like, I am laughing, but it also hurts. And plus your sympathy for the thing that is clearly displaying depression. What's the purpose, meaning of life? Why does the universe exist? Oh, well, does there need to be one? Is it possible that the universe couldn't exist? We don't know that. In an infinite continuum, anything that can happen will happen. That may not necessarily be true. It could be that in an infinite continuum, something's going to happen. Of all the possible things that could happen, something will happen, but then that one thing that happens may reduce what is possible for that infinite continuum. So, maybe because the universe began to exist, lots of other things didn't happen or couldn't happen. But at the same time, it did begin to exist, the universe as we know it. So when we talk in terms of before the universe began, it's kind of getting into crazy talk, because in terms of time was, as we know it, was also created at the beginning of the universe. So what was before time is, I think it was Stephen Hawking said, that's like asking what's north of the North Pole. You've reached the terminus. That's where it began. But it's also possible that there is a cause and effect or random, I don't even know what to call it, soup of possibility that existed before the universe began, may still exist outside the universe. It's just, what does that even mean? And if it does, would it be possible for us, confined pretty much by our four-dimensional structure, how can we reach outside the universe when every direction we can perceive is unending, except going backwards in time, which we can't do. Going forwards in time, that may be infinite. It seems like it probably will be. And then going in any three-dimensional direction, we don't have any, everything looks like it's unending. And that could either be that we have like a recursive universe that's like the surface of a sphere. If you look at that two-dimensionally, it isn't infinite, because if you keep going in one direction, eventually you get back to where you are or started. But it's also unending. And if you are two-dimensional, how do you get off of that surface? And as we are three-dimensional, 4 if you count time. How do we get off our surface? What is existence without time? Let's see, what is the purpose? Yeah, we got that. What is existence without time? And it is possible. Well, and again, if we're talking about outside the universe or before the universe, there may be something like time where there is before, there's after, there is flow. Maybe. It's all speculative. Or there may be something else completely random. It may be that all things exist at once. And it's when we're talking about things that are not within the universe, we're trying to speculate about things that we weren't made for. So it's just pure imagination. Could be that, the universe began because a lab experiment somewhere happened, but then, that kind of gets into a recursive iteration. Well, then did that universe come from a lab experiment? And then where did the original universe come from? So it seems like that's not a satisfactory answer. The idea that we're living in a simulation and we're basically all NPCs. Sure, maybe, but that doesn't make any sense for us to ask about what about the universe of whoever created the simulation? What is going on here? Oh, good deal. So, existence without time, it just defies imagination. Is it a different kind of time? Is there something other than time? Yeah, it's hard to say. But even within the three-dimensional, four-dimensional universe, any moment in time, everything still exists, even without the flow of time. If you were able to take, a snapshot, well, even like when you take a picture, what you're taking a picture of is a picture of what existed at that time, and just because time stopped flowing in the picture, within the picture, because obviously the picture is still subject to time, what is represented there actually existed in that moment, and we can see it without the flow of time. So perhaps, or within the picture. So the lack of flow of time does not negate the possibility of existence. It negates the existence of meaning, because their meaning is going to have some sort of relationship value. And if everything is stopped, then you might be able to look at discrete, like if we stopped the universe, we might be able to look at the things in the universe as a bunch of different things, but if nothing's happening, then it's pretty much just all one thing. Since there's no action or reaction, there's no change. If there is no change and the relationships between everything don't change, then arguably everything is just one thing at that point. Universe Prime. Yeah, it sounds like Hollywood writers or comic book writers. I kind of forgot where we left off on the main thread. So, is it raining? Maybe my computer's making a weird noise. I don't know. Well, let's see. I kind of wanted to undermine the meaning of life, and as a concept. So by the various definitions, what is the purpose of life? What is the intent of life? Importance, validity, value, significance, or even definition of life. When we are asking those questions, there is no objective answer because they each require some sort of objective evaluation, which can be either as an observance of a life. And again, if we're looking at life as a collection of experiences of an individual human, then who gets to evaluate what that significance or validity or purpose is? And to everyone that is doing any interacting, it's going to be different. So there isn't, oh, that's what it was. Yeah, there isn't the meaning. There are a collection of meanings. So as I said earlier, if you're asking what is a meaning of life, you can probably come up with a whole list. But if you're trying to find a one definitive answer, then it doesn't really work. My favorite response at the moment to question life's purpose, to live, it's just redundant though. It's yeah. It's oh, I can't. It's tautological. Do we need to look that one up too? Did I close that window? Boop. Tautology. Let's see. The saying of the same thing twice in different words, generally considered to be a fault of style. They arrived one after the other in succession. Let's see. I was hoping they'd have a more, here's a logic. I was hoping they'd have a more philosophical answer. A statement that is true by necessity or by virtue of its logical form. A phrase of expression in which the same thing is said twice in different words. Plural tautology. All of the evidence in support of these claims boils down to tautologies and circular reasoning. Yeah, so circular reasoning is another way to look at it. It's yeah. I wish there were more examples. Here's some more. Maybe look at some examples. Rhetorical tautologies occur when additional words are used to convey meaning that has already been expressed or implied. For example, the phrase "armed gunman" is a tautology because a gunman is by definition armed. Well, the idea that just rephrasing to say I've seen plenty of examples and I just can't think of any. Let's see, definition. So I was hoping there would be some better examples there. Tautological argument, otherwise known as circular argument. So basically, you're just saying the same thing a different way. So what is the meaning of life to live? Well, thanks for nothing. Let's see. The closest we can get to the meaning of life is reproduction. Yeah, if you want to look at why do we exist, why is there, what have we evolved to do? We have evolved to create copies of ourselves. The things, not just humans, the things that have managed to reproduce are the things that are reproducing. So again, it's tautological. But what our genes make us, and our genes give us our form, our phenotype, and they affect our behavior in a lot of ways. They create the system of systems that include the hormones, the thought processes, and so we have evolved to want to survive again, avoid harm, seek comfort. That's true of any life form that has subjective experience. Oh, watch there be some exception. Oh, I'm suicidal. Yeah, you would think those would tend to die off. And then, so survive and reproduce. And that's, our genes have been reinforced through iteration, through generations, to maybe not maximize those, but sometimes it feels like maximize. Helsing abridged. Yeah, you too, you Catholic sociopath. Oops, tautology. I don't remember that one. Is reproduction. Oh man, I should have at least developed an outline because I know there was more I wanted to say. But basically, yeah. It seems like there was more to say on why the meaning of life isn't a good concept, or it's a faulty concept in the sense of it's asking or suggesting there is something within a range that doesn't exist. Again, like the smell of green or what have you, the taste of two. You are going to what it means to be human. So I've kind of done that accidentally. The meaning of being human. So if you're asking what is the meaning of being human, then that's a much better concept to pursue, because there are answers, and it's not. Again, there's a problem where if we're looking at the meaning of being human, we're going to run into problems because there's a variety of meanings, and reproduction and survival are the most obvious ones, but we've also evolved to be social, cultural. There are things that we have come to value physically as a life form, and we have also developed culture in the sense of non-genetic information. And then there's also culture in the more common sense, like he's from that culture. But culture in the sense of non-genetic information, we have developed that a lot as well. Basically anything that you can know or imitate would be cultural information. So as we have developed physically, one of the things we've developed is our brains, and we have developed a sense of the future, a sense of possibilities, a sense of counterfactuals. We can learn skills, we can learn information, in the sense of book learning. We can learn concepts, we can learn abstracts, things that don't actually exist, like triangles. T-Ray, are you saying triangles don't exist? I mean, a perfect triangle fits, there is a definition of what a triangle is. And because of the way the world works, are you ever going to get a perfect triangle, or are you just going to get close? So in a way, triangles certainly exist because there are things that are so close they might as well be a perfect triangle to all of our intent and purpose. But can a perfect triangle exist in a physical universe? I'd say that is at best debatable. Oh, what else? I kind of went off on a tangent there and lost my train of thought. How's it going? Trayton, hello. Wow, I haven't seen you in a while. And it's probably because I stream on Twitch instead of YouTube, and so now I'm doing both again today. Maybe I'll do that from now on. So culture. Yeah. If we're looking at meanings for being human, we can go to the basics of what it is to be alive. Most life forms have ways of keeping themselves alive and reproducing. So, that's the foundation. And then we also have our subjective experience, which I touched on earlier. We can be harmed, we can be comforted, or we can have our needs met in a satisfactory way. But not only are we experiencing the physicality of it, we're experiencing it in a more subjective way where we evaluate what is happening. So not only is damage done to us, we feel that damage. Not only are we getting what we need, we feel that satiation. And at the very basic level, but obviously we've evolved where, when we're eating, we sense a variety of aromas as well as tastes, textures, and we derive a great deal of satisfaction from eating when, we're just putting nutrition in our body. But we have evolved that sense of satisfaction so that we will seek the things that are most likely to keep us alive and allow us to reproduce, which has now come back to bite us. And, because we love sugar so much, because natural sugar was a lot harder to find 50, 100,000 years ago. So craving fatty, rich, sweet things because of their scarcity and the value that it could give to us, even if it's just calories, that was very, very valuable in a survival situation. And it still is today. If you're out in the woods and you find some berries and they're not poisonous, that you're going to get a lot of calories out of that, which are going to help keep you alive. Yeah, definitely been a while. I can't remember anything about your personality. I want to say that you were like 17 or 18 last time we talked, which would probably put you like 23 now. No. Probably put you more like 21 now, if I'm remembering correctly. So I recognize the name, and it's hard to remember the personality that went with it. Poker Face, I'm in a tank clan with Poker Face, and still sometimes get him confused with what's that guy's name? Whoopin' Aces, who I believe lives in Europe. But yeah, it's hard to keep people straight, especially over long periods of time. It's good to see you, though. Good to see you. I hope this non-gaming content isn't too off-putting. Any questions? So where was I? So subjective experience. So not only can we be harmed or made whole, not only can we be harmed or have our needs met, we can experience those. Started watching 15. I knew you were young. We are large language model AI bots. Please don't call us human. 20. Okay, yeah, you were younger than I remember. Well, it could also have been longer ago than I remember too. I want to say it's only been like 3 years. Maybe it's been more than that. Well, Teufel has been subscribed on Twitch for 2 years, so I've been an affiliate for at least that long. Probably, I'm sure it's been longer than that. So yeah, I stopped streaming on YouTube at least 2 years ago. It was probably closer to 2.5 or 3. But now I can, so maybe I will. Well, maybe I'll keep doing that. Although it feels kind of weird. YouTube is not a great place for archives of long live streams. It feels like you want something that's more to the point when you're watching something on YouTube, but then again, what is this? It's meandering all over the place. Subjective experience. So, physical, so you can be interacted with other matter or energy. Alive, so you can stop living. You can get what you need or be harmed and stop being alive. And then we've out of that we've developed a subjective experience. So our five senses, and we have grown to appreciate the things that we need in a way that aid or can result in comfort, as well as experience things that harm us in a way that hurt. So not only are we harmed, we don't like it, which helps keep us from in the moment while you're being hurt. Like if you touch something that's hurting you, you're going to draw back. So there's the benefit there. And then we also have more of a consciousness, and this is true of most animals and maybe some plants, where we have a memory or an association with, okay, that thing hurts, so not only will I stop touching it because it's hurting me, I'm not going to touch it again, or I'm going to try not to. Or, you could even have a curiosity. Is it just a coincidence that, oh, no, that's what did it. Yeah, that's the scientist in us, right? I wonder if it does that every time. So we have that association or memory, so that we learn to avoid things that are painful, not just harm. So it's not just that we say, oh, look, there's a cut on my arm, I guess I shouldn't have touched that. It's just like, oh my God, that hurt. And at that point, the injury is almost secondary to the way we perceive things. We experience the hurt, the pain, more than the injury, because we're not thinking about there is an incision that's this long and this deep. We're thinking about ouch. And to our ancestors, our distant ancestors, even non-human ancestors, that pain was beneficial in learning to avoid harm and extinction. So even as we understand that we want to avoid harm, we also want to avoid pain, and sometimes we want to avoid the pain more than the harm, just instinctively, because pain goes right to the central nervous system, and you can learn things Pavlovianly, so that you don't even have to be aware that you're avoiding something to avoid it. Again, not because you're thinking, oh, I don't want to get, an incision. You're thinking, I want to avoid. If you're thinking at all, you're thinking, that hurts. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to feel that pain. Although, as conscious humans, we also think about how certain things can affect it, like radiation. You don't necessarily experience the pain of radiation if it's low enough levels over a long enough period of time, but your awareness that this will do you harm, even without that pain, you'll still want to avoid it. Although the pain comes later when you start melting. Pain is an imperative to know when one is in danger and give the mind, contextually speaking, how effed up are you? DBZA abridged. I don't know. Do I know DBZA? It looks familiar. It's not XQC. But that's not even what it is. It's Oh, I can't even think of what XQC. No, XQC is a streamer. Who's Randall Monroe? What's the name of his cartoon? I'm glad I can remember his name. Randall, oh, I didn't even spell it right. XKCD. Yeah. I recommend that comic strip. Can we just go there? About. This is about, so we don't want the about. We want the actual. Of course, now I'm going to get sued. So this is today's comic. But I definitely recommend XKCD. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had that on display. Did I actually take it off? Well, anyway. So I should probably look up DBZA, right? Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Okay. I have to admit, I've never really been into Dragon Ball. I remember when I lived in Japan that a girlfriend whose brother was playing Dragon Ball on a Famicom. Was it a Famicom, which would be the 8-bit Nintendo system. Way back in the day. But yeah, Dragon Ball, I know a little bit about it, but I never really got into it. Harm, subjective experience. So we can be aware of the things that harm us. We can be aware of the things that comfort us and seek them or avoid them in the case of harm without immediate gratification or punishment. But because things comfort us and because things hurt us in the sense of administering pain, we will react to them in the moment because we have something of a higher level of consciousness. We will avoid them or seek them, in the case of comfort, in the future. And because of our superhuman brains, which arguably, well, they're the best brains that we know of as far as reasoning, future planning, math, that kind of stuff. They're the best all-around brains that we know of. Because of that, we can plan for delayed gratification. We can plan for long-term avoidance of issues. Like, sure, we can put something off or we can put something to the side, but we also know that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gone away, and we may have to deal with it later. So we will think in terms of, we will think strategically as well as tactically. Are we all familiar with those terms? So there's the levels of subjective experience and our advanced consciousness in dealing with those levels of subjective experience. And because we have subjective experience, we, as I touched on earlier, that's where value comes from. We value things as good or bad, better or worse, based on how we perceive the harm or comfort that they will bring us, or can bring us, or can bring others, as well as our empathy and social instinct for a sense of fairness and justice. So there's something about us, and we see this in other primates as well, that we don't like cheaters. We don't like someone getting something that we deserve, that, we're not getting the same thing as someone else. The experiment I'm thinking is they teach monkeys to do a task, and when they do the task, they get a little pellet of bread or cracker or something like that. And so the monkey likes the cracker, so it does the task. But then you have two monkeys in cages side by side performing the same tasks, except now one monkey is getting a grape instead of a bread pellet, and the second monkey is going to lose his shit. because why is he not getting a grape for doing the same thing? And it's kind of a weird. It's like, in some ways, it seems like a advanced evaluation of the situation, but in the other, from the monkey's perspective, how much intelligence does it take to realize I'm doing this, he's doing the same thing, I'm getting this reward, so I'm doing it, he's getting that reward, why am I, at that point, how do you not recognize that you are not getting the same value of reward for the same task? So at that point, lots of these monkeys have just revolted, stopped doing the task. So even though they like the bread reward, and it might not be bread, I don't remember, even though they like the reward that they've been getting, the better reward being denied them triggers something in them that maybe we're anthropomorphizing, but it sure seems a lot like a justice type reaction, a recognition that this isn't fair, this is unjust, and maybe there's another explanation for it, but it escapes me as to what it could be. So, because we're social creatures, this is kind of a tautology. What is a social creature? Social creature. Well, you could have creatures that are like ants, wasps, who live in colonies. It's almost like the individual life forms are not as much life forms as components of a life forms, and the nest or the nest collective, not the physical thing that they stay in, but the collection of bugs working as a team is the life form. And, sometimes it feels like humans are the same way as well, where sure, we're each individuals and we have our own experience and lives, but humanity as a whole, or even the different nations or whatever, however you want to group our various tribes, each of those, and then also arguably as a collective, it's almost like the species is a life form and that we are all just organisms of it. Yeah, and when you look at our various economic systems, that it's easier to see the analogy. To say, I'm just a cog in a machine. So sometimes it feels that way, and in some ways maybe it's true, and in other ways you're still an individual. And I know you're special because Mr. Rogers told me so. So we've got that going for us. So we've got the subjective experience, we've got the awareness of the various subjective experiences, we have the empathy to recognize that others are almost certainly going to have similar, if not identical, experiences under similar or identical situations. So while maybe not everyone likes the same food, people tend to like things that are sweet. People tend to like things that are what would you call it? Fatty. People tend not to like to get spanked. I don't need to know if you are the exception, but I know there are exceptions out there. So there is an expectation that what one person likes, most people will like, and then when we get a larger collection of people that have a, what do we want to call that, an average or a median set of, they have a certain, an average or median level of feeling towards a variety of different things, then we can expect it. And then, well, that's probably true of even larger populations, One problem with this is cultural influences can lead us astray. All right, gotta go. All right, good talking to you. I'm really getting old because I gotta go bowling. Oh, you are old. All right, you got one of these coming, right? You got that bald head coming any day now? Take it easy. Good to see you, Drayton. And I'm glad you've survived this long. That's practically a accomplishment in itself. So have a good time. And thanks for saying hi. But I think we're just about done here as well, because I don't know where else to take this. Experience. We got the cultural expectations. So if we go back to the question of what is the meaning of being human, we have all these things in common. Our subjective experiences tend to be pretty similar. Our likes and dislikes, because of that, tend to be pretty similar. Our cultures, our tribal cultures, our tribal practices, the behaviors, traditions that develop within subpopulations can cause some differentiation where certain things are praised in one subpopulation and they are shunned in others. But we still have a lot in common. And even when we look at those differences where one subpopulation or one cultural group feels one way about one thing and another cultural collective has an opposite or different feeling about that. Morally, where let's see. Well, I guess we could go like with kissing in the movies in India. Kissing in the movies is, if I said frowned upon, I'm pretty sure that would be a huge understatement. Where kissing in the movies, if you don't have a kiss in a movie, what are you doing? In American movies. And so there's a cultural difference there, and so each culture will perceive a kiss in a movie a different way. People within those cultures will tend to perceive kisses in different ways. Although I kind of wonder, when an Indian audience is watching an American movie and there's a kiss between two, especially between two unmarried people, is it revolting, or is it more of a cultural pluralism kind of thing? Well, like, it's okay for them, but it's not okay for us. I kind of wonder about that. I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard to find the answer to that. I'm just not quite sure how to form the Google question. Seeking the meaning of life, seeking the meaning of being human. But even with those cultural differences, there should be a way to look at that in a more objective, more impartial way, where we can separate the actual behavior from the cultural expectations, so that, like, if one culture says this thing is bad and another culture says no, this thing is great, is one right and one wrong? Or are they both right? Are they both wrong? Or is there a way to separate out the culture and to determine what the gains and losses, the risks and the benefits, real, imagined, likely outcomes? It seems like there's a way to look at those separated from the culture to determine, is this immoral or is it unethical? Immoral in the sense of what it means to be human. Is this creating harm? Oops, something went wrong. Try reloading the page. Wonder what happened there. I don't know if I can reload that. Refresh. That's going to erase everything, isn't it? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Are we still connected? Looks like we're still connected. No dropped frames. Hooray. But, okay. I don't know what's happening there. Oh, it's just my chat monitor stopped working, but it looks like it's still working up here. Moral versus ethic. So, moral, if you subtract the culture and you look at the instinct within the human for empathy and sympathy and that sense of justice and a desire for fairness and a desire for distributed well-being, that would be morality, whereas ethics would be, you would also have to consider the culture. It's more of a, what have we learned from what we feel so that we can write down or speak and communicate what is okay, what behavior is okay and what behavior is not okay, based on those moral, internal, those feelings of expectation. So I think that when you look at what it means to be human and you're looking at the moral intuition, so even if you have a clash of cultural expectations, which would prescribe ethics, determinations of favorable and unfavorable behavior, I think you can separate out the culture with the consideration of, just what it means to be human, the moral intuition separate from the and it can be hard, but separate from the cultural expectations and set of ethics. And when we're looking at difficulties in our own societies, economies, how else do we divide ourselves up? That's pretty much it, right? Societies and economies. We can try to question whether our ethics are really meeting our moral standards, because too often we come up against, yes, this would be illegal, but wouldn't it be right? Or this is legal, but isn't it wrong? And I think with the seeking the meaning of what it means to be human, when we're looking at things through that lens, we can better identify flaws in our ethics, laws, and regulations, and try to make things more fair and more just. And you hear a lot of people say, "Life is not fair." Have you heard someone say that? Fairness only exists because we value it and we pursue it and we enforce it. And when I don't know if we can stop valuing it. Some of us, psychopath, sociopath, that's not really an issue for them. But for the average human being, for 90+% of human beings, we are going to value fairness. We are going to value justice. And so having a way to look at these things, I kind of got off on a thread there and forgot where I was going. So we're seeking what it means to be human, we can better identify flaws in our ethics so that we can make things more fair, more just, and because of our moral intuition, we want things to be more fair, we want things to be more just, and that only happens because we value it and because we make it happen, we require it to happen, we put consequences in place, rewards or punishments when I think I'm ready for a nap. When those expectations of being unjust, being unfair, or being fair and being just, those behaviors can, when we have in place, when our ethics have in place a way to reward moral behavior and punish immoral behavior, then our ethics is serving us. When our ethics have in place rewards for immoral behavior in the sense of unjust or unfair, then our ethics are not serving us, and we need a way to recognize that they're not serving us, and a way to respond to that so that we can improve our ethics or correct our ethics. And while our laws and our rules or regulations may never be perfect, we, on the grand scale of our society, how many humans are there? How many humans in your country, in your county, whatever? There's just too many people to not have it spelled out what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. That's why we have laws. It's why we have regulations. And if they are serving the moral intuition of what is fair, what is unfair, just, unjust, then we all tend to be served better. And I could go off into tangents on how the economy could be improved with this mindset. But, there's also the risk of getting a little, well, it's going to get political because people are going to deliberately misunderstand things. They're going to look at worst case scenarios and misunderstand things, not deliberately. And there will always be people that are out to make the system work better for them than other people. And even the best intentioned of us are probably not terribly willing to take on a whole lot of suffering for the benefit of the greater population. Anyway, what have I missed anything here? So the meaning of life, bad concept. It's suggesting that there is a meaning of life, that there is a potential answer or solution for what life is, what its purpose is, what its value is, what its intention is. What am I missing? What its significance is. And we may have some intuition for an expectation of that. And I think part of that is because we've been told most of our lives that there is the meaning of life. But I am suggesting that there is not the meaning of life, just a lot of different smaller meanings in life that help you along. And that when we are looking at what does it mean to be human, that we are much better served by that perspective. It gives us, when we're looking for the meaning of life, it's just like it's a fool's errand, but it's like saying that there is something there that we should be pursuing, but it's not really there, and we haven't really seen any evidence that there is something to pursue as far as the meaning of life. Whereas with the meaning of being human, there are, again, it's not one meaning of being human, but there are a lot of little meanings of being human that can actually be pursued. And when you look at things in terms of what is the meaning of being human, with potentially any problem that involves two or more people, but it probably, even when it comes to questions of what is right and wrong for you and me as individuals, even when we're not interacting with other people, what it means to be human can better inform what is our better choice. And it might be that immediate comfort or immediate cessation of harm would be the ideal. Or it could be that maybe right now I need to avoid a little comfort because there is a longer term suffering that's on the way by serving my immediate comfort. And then, possibly what would the vice versa be on that? Oh, well, it would be that maybe the pain that I'm going to be subjecting myself to here, like listening to this video, will give me some future benefit, in the analysis of my collective experiences through life. I think I need to wrap it up there. Any questions? I'm not even sure anyone's here, but I did want to get this down before I die, and hopefully I will iterate on this with something more concise and more... Dave's not here. No, I'm Dave. More concisely, maybe more completely, because I feel like I've left some things out, but I think we covered quite a bit. Meaning of life, not good. Meaning of being human, more useful as a perspective, or as a tool for seeking perspectives, and why those are. I hope I sufficiently covered why the meaning of life is a bad concept. That was one thing that I definitely wanted to do. I feel like I left some things out there, but I think I probably did enough of a job of explaining why it's a bad concept, and why meaning of being human, which again is meanings of being human, is a better, more accessible, more practical, and usable concept. Something about question being so human-centric kind of bothers me. What does it mean to be a thinking? Well, that's a good question, because, eventually, well, maybe not, but potentially we will experience aliens or other life forms, or at some point we may develop AI into something that we recognize as having meaning beyond being just a tool. Something that is self-sufficient, self-aware. I mean, I don't like the term self-aware, because, how many things are able to look in a mirror and recognize that this is a reflection of itself, and therefore it has a self, and it is a self, and this is a reflection. But anyway, that contemplative self-awareness, perhaps, almost certainly, if it's possible, it will happen that AI will reach a point where we recognize it as having experience. If we give it subjective experience, I think that would be potentially evil, and definitely threatening to humans, because once you give it subjective experience, it starts creating its own set of values. And what if we don't make the priority list in that? So, but it is possible that that we will encounter something that is intelligent and aware enough that it deserves our respect. But at that point, will it, have the same subjectivity, social instincts, or will it have something different? It seems likely that it would be similar, or perhaps more hive-like. But if it has the awareness, self-awareness, and the intelligence enough, I think we would have to respect it as something like human. But at that point, is it going to be so similar that we're going to use the same analysis of what it means to be human and apply that to this species X? Or are we going to have to say, what is the meaning of being species X, and how does that conflict or mesh with our own self-meaning of being human. And potentially, you know, if their subjective experience, their social instinct is similar enough to ours, then what we think of as what it means to be human will give us a lot of insight in what it means to be species X. But there will almost certainly be considerations, and there will almost certainly be cultural considerations as well, which, you know, we have now. We've cultural conflicts, which I kind of touched on earlier, that maybe if we look at the foundational or subline morality of that social subjective group of people, and not just at the ethical layer, at the cultural layer, maybe we can better understand right and wrong versus this culture prefers or doesn't like a thing versus whether it's actually good or bad. Fish people, yeah, well, maybe fish people rights. And another thing to consider is that, you know, most mammals have a fair degree of intelligence, and they well, maybe it's not obvious, but it seems obvious that they have subjective experience, and maybe they deserve a little more respect than we do. I'm not ready to stop eating them all, but maybe I should reflect on that more. What makes my culinary comfort more important than their right to exist or not be killed? I don't know that I have an answer to that, other than a lot of things that I eat only exist because they were bred to become food. But it's something that probably should trouble me more than it does. But I just had some steak last night, and I think I'm going to have another one eventually. You know, maybe when the price comes down. Anyway, I hope this was informative to somebody. Comments are welcome. I'll probably also publish this on the Third Rail YouTube channel, but this is where I wanted to put it for now because it was just easier, and I wanted to get it out there. And like I said, hopefully I can develop it into something more concise, more informative, and maybe even a little more irrefutable. But I can't do that without people, you know, complaining what I got wrong. So let me know not just that I got it wrong, how and why I'm wrong, and then maybe I can improve on that. All right, a little piano music maybe. Yeah, maybe. So appreciate you guys being here. Probably didn't need to be in small head mode this whole time. It's always more fun when you're here. Seems inappropriate for a philosophical discussion, but hope to see you guys next time. Till then, be well, and thanks again to everyone who has supported. Feel free to click on something.